All right. So the first question, Jim, you mentioned that you and Jay have explored different businesses. Some have worked, some did not. When you're considering venture feasibility and whether or not a business might or will be successful, are there specific areas that you look at?
First of all, whenever you're looking at an idea, fundamentally, you kind of think about, okay, what does the market need? What could, fly off the shelves, so to say. And while that's massively important for me to decide whether something's going to be successful or not going to be successful, I think my number one go-to is really the people that are part of it. I learned a long time ago, you can run a small business very well by yourself, but you can't run a great big business by yourself. Learning a new career or working with a manager or coworkers, all that requires human interaction. The better you are at that, the better relationships you're going to build. People are going to remember you. And so it could open up either more doors. When I'm looking at an idea, money is great, but for me, money is secondary. It is about what you're building, and it's about who you're building it with. My advice would be spend a lot more time on the team and or your partners if you got to have some. I hate to say it, but it really comes down to a lot of emotional intelligence with those people. Are they very emotional type, or do they, are they very solutions oriented? Do they care about others that they work with? Are they willing to go above and beyond? Those are the qualities I think are super important, and especially in startups, because startups can be a lot of pressure. When all those start stacking up, it really comes down to, hey, who's in your corner? Who's your support system? And so for me, that is the number one area I look at.
Yeah. And just to add to that, I'm really emotional.
So, oh, I know.
Jim just tried to uppercut me right there. No, but I love Jim's point about understanding the team that you have. Even within the MentorMesh community, we've got a lot of former educators that are very, very good at education. There is definitely an opportunity to start a venture specifically in that area because you're already the experts. Even when you transition into tech, you don't have to start over. If we have an expertise in education with this team, that is super valuable. Success is not about coming up with an idea, staying true to the path. At least I don't believe that. I think it's better to be a lot more abstract and be willing to pivot, because things changed way too fast for you to have this set 5-year roadmap. You can't do that anymore.
Just recognize that you're going to throw it out after one. Quite possibly.
There you go.
You have to plan because you do not know what the future holds, but your plans have to be nimble. It may go 180 degrees away from where you think it's headed at a given period of time.
All right. So next question is for Quinn. I'm really interested in program management, and I'm wondering, in your experience, how strong someone's technical skills need to be. What kind of experience someone might need in order to get hired? And this is from Monty.
Yeah, great question. It really depends on the company, the problem space. But for me, when I'm looking to hire people that have done program management, I'm looking for problem solving capabilities. I'm looking for communication. I'm looking for people who can come into an ambiguous situation and figure out what needs to get done to solve a problem. Where are the gaps that the team has discovered or doesn't even recognize? At Twitter, I'm managing a bunch of really super technical stuff, but I almost never really talk about the technology because it's really about getting people to work together more effectively, getting people to communicate, and making sure that everybody has a voice at the table. All of those different capabilities really have nothing to do with the technology.
Probably one of the number one strengths that you can have is your ability to work with people. You're going to have to work with all of these different types of people that you don't have direct authority over. And so you have to get really good at convincing them to help you, because who cares if you're super technical, if nobody wants to work with you? Because the thing is, we are all like really, really busy. And so part of your job is to make sure that you have partners that are going to help you get the work done, because you can't do it by yourself. Building relationships, being really good with people, soft skills like that can be a huge part of your success.
I mean, at the end of the day, we're all people. We want to go to work and have a good experience. We want to work with people that are fun to be around and, are helping us, and we can help them.
Next question is, how do you begin with networking when you are looking to switch a career, specifically when you have boot camp in the new field and no experience? So this is like, how do you start your networking? You join mentormesh.io. But at the same time, I've kind of shared some opinions on that. I'd love to hear your guys' perspective on how do you start to network when you don't know anybody?
I think you find anybody that's in that industry and just start talking to them. It will sort of breed itself if they know other people that you can reach out to. It's always about just that first contact. And it may not lead anywhere, but the more of those conversations that you have, eventually some of them will start to lead somewhere.
And then the other one would be, let's say you know absolutely nobody in that space, zero. Well, then guess what? You go to the network you do have and you ask who they know. Because some people are, hey, my cousin is blah, 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 or my, uncle runs this thing. And well, hey, great. Can you set up a conversation? Can I ask them some questions? Can I pick his brain? Are they hiring? You could even get that direct that fast.
Yeah, there's all sorts of online communities, and I think I've mentioned this on our Mentor Mesh chat already. GitHub is a great place to go to get involved with some sort of a startup application. Maybe you can't code, maybe you could help coordinate meetings or help coordinate the code, the check-ins, or document things for them. Get involved, start making those relationships in any way you can. And if someone genuinely wants to learn and listen, it isn't just try to get maybe them to do something for them, they'll be much more open and interested in talking to you about it.
Yeah, I was actually going to say the same thing. Like, I think it's like the social media revolution. Actually finding strangers that have similar interests is actually pretty easy. Facebook groups are incredible. Like, if you go there, I think some 40% of people on Facebook are in a Facebook group. You'll find, beginning to code groups. You'll find new to programming. You'll find thousands of people that have that same interest. So start commenting on their posts. Start posting yourself. You can meet people that way. Over time, I always encourage people to have quality relationships if you can, not just having 1,000 people in your network, but actually knowing a lot of them. The more people you know, the more likelihood you'll find somebody that's willing to have a discussion with you and start your network. For folks that look like I personally believe that I think they're going to do really well, I'll absolutely proclaim to my network that I think this is somebody that you should consider. And I think that that's something that we all should do when you have a network and life is good for you. Help other people out, because chances are there's going to be a time when life is not good for you and you're going to need somebody to help you. There is a question rising to the top. Myself and others here are coming in from other fields such as education and are above 40 years old. Does that play against us in some organizations, or perhaps play in our favor? How do you see that working at a variety of companies?
I told you earlier I was a late bloomer. I started at 35. Basically an entry-level position that I took to get in. I don't think it mattered at the time. I mean, I've been teased about my age by some of the people I've carpooled with. But honestly, once you get a little salt in your hair, people just figure you know what you're talking about. So honestly, it can play for your favor as well.
I mean, I think it also speaks to have a compelling story. If you've been a teacher for 20 years and then you're like, I really want to become a Java developer, I have a passion for it, have a story as to why that is exciting to you. Like, you saw someone else create an app and you thought, I want to change people's lives in that way. So I stopped teaching. I started learning Java on my own, and I'm taking this entry-level job because I'm passionate about it. If I'm in person interviewing you, I'm going to be super excited about that story, and I'm going to want to help you on your journey. It's a compelling experience instead of someone like, oh yeah, I just need a job. Everyone loves a good narrative. Everyone loves an underdog story, someone pursuing their dream. Everyone wants to be part of that. And if you can communicate that's where you're at and that's why you're wanting to do this change, you'll find a very welcoming experience, I think.
Yeah, I think that's all of that is very true. I think what's nice about tech is that it actually doesn't take very many years to be considered like mid-level or senior. And I think that's an advantage. Like, you don't have to be a developer for 10 years to be considered senior. Because technology changes so often, having 2 or 3, 4 years, you start to become senior. And so if you're, 42, 43 years old and and that's when you're first getting your job, by the time you're like 46, you're kind of mid-level, near senior. Like, it starts to not matter like really quickly. The only time you might feel a little off maybe is at the very beginning. But even then, like I said earlier, if you have experience in any industry, which obviously you do, even trying to find a role in that industry allows you to use your former experience in your new role. So if you already have an education background, then look at education tech startups or companies that are tech, but education is what they do, or even just a straight up education company, because they all have technology as part of their business. So there's no way to get around that. So that's one way to kind of use your existing and previous experience in your tech career, because you're not really starting over. Because remember, what we were talking about earlier, even with program management, a lot of it is dealing with people. Quinn mentioned that. I mean, you've done all that. You're not a rookie to communication and dealing with people. Highlight that. And I've mentioned this to many of you in your resumes and your LinkedIn profiles. Like, make sure that your profile tells the story you want to tell. What does it say that you are? And be very specific. You can even say on the headline exactly what you are. To Quinn's point about having a story, what's your story? Educator turned tech professional is a pretty interesting story. I mean, tagline, because people are going to want to know, well, what are you doing? How are you doing that? And I think, again, what's great about social media is that you have an opportunity to, even if you're daring enough, tell that story publicly. People like that because it's content that resonates with them. It is something that I think that I would recommend for sure, because then you're building a network of people that are going to follow you and be concerned and potentially help you in the future.